President Joe Biden has made his pick for the Supreme Court. Earlier today, it was reported that Joe Biden has nominated Ketanji Brown Jackson for his pick to replace Stephen Breyer. So now he followed through, of course, on his promise to nominate a black woman for the Supreme Court. And when you look at her record, well, it's actually pretty good. It's really one of the better picks that we could hope for. And so now, for one, let me go through some details for her to kind of illustrate that. Now, for one, of course, she's very well known for basically being on the side of people who are facing disparate sentences. So now, she had actually worked for the U.S. Sentencing Commission, which is an independent federal agency aimed at addressing disparities and inconsistency for sentencing throughout the system. So she worked there. She made sure she did everything that that she could to try to ensure that people didn't get as disparate sentences. People who were black and white got similar sentences. So now she also then had left that work to spend a couple of years as a public defender. In fact, she defended people who couldn't afford that representation. She tried to help with more equal sentencing. As I mentioned, during the Obama administration, she also implemented or worked to implement amendments to the federal sentencing guidelines to reduce harsher sentences for drug crimes. So you see, just from some of those examples, her track record is pretty good. Much better than, again, other certain prospective picks, and I'll get to that. So now let me give you some more information. Now, she had also, of course, went against the Trump administration, not surprising. While in the D.C. Circuit Court, Judge Jackson ruled against a number of Trump and his allies' schemes to avoid subpoenas, and of course tried to prevent him from asserting executive privilege when it came to documents requested by the January 6th committee. There are other rulings, of course. One, that which she presided over, where Guam had sued the United States military over a landfill. So now, that opinion, she wrote, by the time the United States government had relinquished control over Guam to civilian authorities back in 1950, this landfill had contained significant quantities of trash, hazardous waste that posed a serious risk to the surrounding environment. Guam sued to cover the $160 million in costs to clean up this landfill. However, they had sued under a federal environmental law that contained two different clauses. So these provisions, one of which included only a 3-year statute of limitations, meaning that if one of these statutes of limitations, the 3-year, were applied, well then Guam's lawsuit wouldn't go anywhere. Okay? So now Jackson ruled that the 3-year limit did not apply, but was reversed by a unanimous D.C. Circuit Court panel. That decision was then reversed by the Supreme Court, ultimately reinstating her original decision, meaning that that Guam could go forward with its lawsuit to have the United States pay $160 million to clean up that landfill. That's good. Now, Jackson also ruled against the Trump administration's harsh immigration policies. However, unfortunately, that victory was a bit temporary. But these cases, when you look at it through it, they were pretty complicated. A lot of competing statutes, technocratic cases, not really the normal hot button issues that you see that are debated in the Supreme Court. So, but what I can see from her record is that she seems very qualified. I don't think that that's in question. As far as like being a super progressive judge, well, let's look at some more. Again, public defender status, she defended a detainee from Guantanamo. So that's something that Republicans are, of course, going to bring up to use against her. How dare you represent a terrorist? But don't we know that a lot of people who are in Guantanamo haven't even been accused of terrorism, or not convicted of terrorism. And there are some that are innocent that should have been let go. They didn't actually attack any Americans, but yet were tortured in Guantanamo Bay. And so, yes, if you're representing people like that, I have absolutely no problem with that. Again, as a public defender. Now, her record on other things seems to be pro-labor, or at least made some pro-labor decisions. That's good. Now, as far as how she compares with other people, well, I was concerned that Biden was actually going to go in the direction of J. Michelle Childs. Now, J. Michelle Childs has a history of representing corporations in cases of racial discrimination and going against unions. She, in fact, helped crush unions. Not good. Not good at all. So now, in fact, Childs, according to David Borer, General Counsel of the American Federation of Government Employees, quote, she comes from an anti-union law firm where she spent time defending employers from claims of civil rights and labor law violations. That's not what we need. The American Prospects also reported that Childs had issued numerous harsh rulings against incarcerated people that were later overturned. In 2009, Childs sentenced a man to 12 years in prison for selling about half a pound of marijuana. Judge Childs' repeated opposition to leniency in sentencing in alleged abuse cases brought by prisoners is notable in its own right, wrote the American Prospect's Alexander Salmon. That she made those decisions on such a dubious grounds that they were routinely overturned by higher courts indicates a commitment to tough on crime rulings beyond the letter of procedure. So you don't see really anything in Jackson's record like you do Childs. Childs, again, anti-union, pro-corporate, and of course, very, very tough on crime. Now, Jackson's record, let me give you some of her pro-labor rulings. On August 15, 2018, in AFGE AFL-CIO versus Trump, Jackson invalidated provisions of 3 executive orders that would have limited the time federal employee labor unions could spend with union members, the issues that unions could bargain over in negotiations, and the rights of disciplined workers to appeal disciplinary actions. Okay, so again, that's pro-labor. Jackson's also, her first decision as a Court of Appeals judge, had invalidated a 2020 rule by the Federal Labor Relations Authority that had restricted the bargaining power of federal sector labor unions. Once again, pro-labor. So basically, and that's just a small overview of her career. Out of the choices we've had, I'm actually very surprised that Biden went in her direction. Seems pretty good. And look, I'm glad that she didn't go in the direction of, you know, Jim Clyburn, who's notoriously incredibly pro-corporate, and Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, of course, also supported J. Michelle Childs. Now he's trying to claim that, oh, no, I didn't. And that, oh, yes, she's too much of an, and I'm talking about Jackson here. Lindsey Graham thinks that she's too elitist. What? Are you kidding me? No, it's ridiculous. No, look, the reason that Clyburn and Lindsey Graham and Republicans really liked J. Michelle Childs is because she was tough on nonviolent drug offenders. She was lenient on corporations. And of course, we know that both Republicans and conservative Democrats really, really like those things. That said, look, no matter what, no matter who was going to be nominated by Joe Biden, Republicans were, of course, going to fight against her. They're going to definitely push back on her. Now, the thing is, thankfully, you only need a simple majority, 51, which means, essentially, what you're going to have here is, and this is my prediction, I don't think that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are going to get in the way of this one. I would be very, very surprised if they came out and became the villains on this. However, it could happen. It could happen. But I just don't think it's very likely. I think it is. I think Biden is going to get his pick. And as far as the picks are concerned, this is one of the better ones that I've seen. And so, hey, I'll take it as a W until I have reason not to.